Actually, it looks like I'm going to have to run and go grab my spare batteries that I thought were good are apparently not good. So, if you guys can hold on one moment, I will be back momentarily. Okay, test, test, test. There we are. Okay, back to where we were. So this guy was calling out, specifically this ripple, this reference count is what's most interesting to me. And this guy down here. Well, so two paths forward, and I think the first one we're going to do is probably the easiest. So, for starters, we're going to jump back to the root of the repo, and then I'm going to take a quick look at the 251 release, because that was where this bug was reported. I have a sinking suspicion that this may have been fixed already. So we're just going to download the 251 release and see if we can reproduce this memory leak here. If it reproduces in 251 and I can't do it in the 260 with my latest code, then I am not that concerned about it, and I will just write it off as fixed in 260. And I probably will end up posting a question asking for a little bit more information on how to use .peak, since this is, not .peak, .memory, since this is not my area of expertise. Like I said, I'm a little more familiar with the Visual Studio tools, and that's the other option, is taking a quick look at this from that perspective, because it's very possible that fire up the tools I'm a little more familiar with, and let's just put you on the desktop. And we will go and grab you real quick. So browse into that guy, and let's see, desktop, demo, bin, and open. Okay, let's see if we can reproduce this now, because this would be the most convenient if this memory issue would reproduce here. Okay, fire up and away we go. Whew. So there have been quite a few changes around here. So let's go over to the buttons and toggles page, because that's something else that ended up happening that's a little different in the latest 260 stuff, is this buttons and toggle page got broken apart into several other pages. Whew. Baby, that's slow. So once again, we're going to give this guy just a moment to somewhat stabilize, and then we will grab our snapshot. Okay, I think that's probably good for snapshot 1. Let's see where that guy lands. Okay, so give that a moment. Okay, and then let's just start clicking through these buttons. Make this guy a little bigger. Okay, take a second snapshot. And let's see if we come up with, because ideally I want to find something that shows me that ripple count getting bigger, like the bug reported. It does appear, I'm wondering if maybe part of my issue before was I clicked this collect allocations, because it appears that that may just toggle this allocation collection bits down here. In fact, once it's done processing the snapshot, we might just, so when you click that, it turns off allocation collect. So that's what that is. It's literally just a setting for whether you should collect those objects or not. Got it. Got it, got it. I'm learning as we go. Let's see here. So, let's again. Oh, this is a little bit nicer if we group by namespace. Shadow local info. But in this case, I'm not seeing new objects being allocated. Unless there's, yeah, I am not seeing by namespace assembly interface. Well, the problem that I see here is that, let's turn off the grouping and just go back to the new objects. Is there no way to turn off the grouping? Plain list. There we are. I will say I am not a big fan of this interface. This does not scream friendliness to me. But what do I know? Let's see, so automation peers, this looks very similar to what we saw before. Storyboard. Object delta. This is that same let's see, yes, same compiler generated delegate. Okay, so this is making me feel a little better. Ahaha! We found it. Okay, so that was my problem, is I turned off the collections before doing it. Okay, so let's call tree. This is not looking promising. Oh, looks like we're getting closer. Ripple mouse button event handler, which that guy is clearly us. And then let's keep going a little deeper, a little deeper. Keep going. Wow. On preview, we've got at least one bit there that's us. Visual State Manager, go to state. Okay. Okay, so let's go back. Because I am interested in seeing and understanding if this is true, and these are the new objects. It bothers me a little bit that a simple call like Visual State Manager go to state is what's leaking. That feels like not the right issue. Okay, so let's go back up. So I'd be willing to bet it's going to be somewhere in this vicinity. Because just allocating objects itself isn't bad. It would only be if those objects were not actually getting reclaimed. Because this is building up a property path parameter collection. This comes from your bindings. Let's see, event handler store, not as familiar with it. Generic list. Let's just take a look at these new instances and see what the path is that they came from. So I think we showed instances. Is that the magical bit here? And then double click on one of these. And this is pretty much meaningless. Looks largely like an empty list. Okay. Observable collection, get path parameters, and these guys did get allocated. Okay. So none of those bother me. Let's step back here a little bit and let's go. Oh, too far. Too many back clicks. Let's actually just kill the app for now because I think we've got all the data we need. Let's go back down here and take a look and see, because I'm really looking to try and understand. This storyboard is probably one of the more root level objects. I'm guessing something is starting a storyboard, holding on to it and not letting go. So let's take a look at the instances. Back traces. Storyboard, create instance core, Visual State Manager, go to state. Purple mouse button event handler. So let's just get this code open and start looking at what's actually in here. because it seems like, according to this, that the fundamental issue here. So this is backtraces, so this is going the opposite direction. So this is Visual State Manager generate dynamic transition, which was called by go to state internal, which was called by go to state common, which was called by go to state, which we ultimately called in Ripple mouse button event handler, or Ripple on preview left mouse button down. Also the same for our toggle button. And despite all of this, I don't see anything that's likely to cause a problem here. And I'm hesitant to put in memory fixes for something that doesn't look like it may be a problem. So I may end up punting this guy a little bit until we can get a little better information. Because I don't necessarily know if this is actually a problem. Come on, Visual Studio, you can do it. You can do it. Once again, my standard rubber duck debugging is to talk to Visual Studio until it does what I want. It may not actually help anything run faster, but it certainly helps my own sanity. So there's that. Also, caffeine. I am convinced that the vast majority of software developers have some form of caffeine addiction, whether it be coffee, soda or pop or tea. Most developers I know have some form of a caffeine addiction, which leaves rise to the idea that a software developer is just an organism that converts caffeine into code. So there are, and most of the, so the bug does link to, I should say Stephen from Auckland did link to this article here, which is rather helpful, except for in most of these cases, and I say most, but I think in almost every single one of these cases, it's all around leaking delegates. So a delegate in .NET largely contains two things. The sender object and then the method info to invoke. And the key here is that in the latest versions of C#, you used to have to declare your event handlers like this, where you were very explicit. You know, event plus equals new event delegate type, and then method to invoke, which this subtly then captured the instance that was in this and stored it inside of this event handler list, which then could cause this to hold on and keep a reference alive. And so the solution in almost all of these is unbind them. And in a lot of these cases where there is these extra bindings or similar, all these are doing is usually implicit delegates. So for example, the command binding, this guy is also capturing a delegate. And so things like this where it's registering up and capturing them, and it's not always clear that that's what's happening. And so in almost all of these situations, the idea is to unregister. Now there's some of these other ones with like bitmap image in an image source. But that is not, I mean, that's not the problem that we're running into here. Because especially with something like the Ripple. So let's take a look at what's actually going on here then. So Ripple class, please. Come on, Visual Studio, I believe in you. going on? There you go. Ripple. So going back to our dot memory, what we're looking for is, maybe we'll just do this on preview, mouse left button down. So on preview, mouse left. Hey, I know you really want to be there, but let's go here. So let's take a look. So ultimately what's happening is this guy is calling in to go to state, which is passing in, calling go to state all the way through, and it is passing in one of these guys. The problem being, and what I suspected, was this pressed instances was getting an item added to it. And I assume, because this is a static collection, which means it will keep an object alive. And I had assumed that that was the source of the problem. Because you'll notice on preview, left mouse button down. Let's look at the other culprit. Mouse button event handler. I know I saw that guy here. Mouse button event handler. It's interesting that this one shows up because it also has a go to state, but this pressed instances is being cleared. So the commonality is these two. So let's look at what's happening inside of this Visual State Manager. So specifically, we are calling go to state, and we're looking for go to state common. So let's take a look at that. For reference, this is the ReSharper decompiled source. So we're going to just keep diving. So go to state common. So we got to here. Now we're looking for go to state internal. Let's see. Get Visual State, go to state internal. Okay, go to state internal. And this guy here, generate dynamic transition animations, generate dynamic transition animations. Just going to make sure. You do want to keep an eye out, especially when walking through these call stacks like this. Sometimes a method will call out to the same thing multiple times. Let's see here. We are looking for storyboard. Where did you get? So you get created there, returned there. Storyboard, get some properties set on it. Children from to. Great, great. Transition animation registers up a completed handler. At least in this case. Start new, then stop old. And this is where I'm not sure that we actually have a bug. Because I do expect some of these objects to be created and newer ones to exist. But I also expect that if your button control goes away, that they are then deallocated. Let's test that theory. Okay, so let's fire this up and do, because this has unfortunately got way too much going on in it. And it's a little difficult to go through. Let's do a very simple WPF project and verify that things are actually being cleaned up. Because I don't mind if the Ripple instance stays alive as long as, say, its parent button is there. But it should be cleaned up once that button is removed. Let's see. Let's just go with the predefined one. Yep, recent templates. Apparently I do a lot of WPF stuff. Let's see here. We are going to go I keep most of my stuff in the dev folder, and we're going to call it clearly WPF app 1. Let's see, MDIX memory test. And we will spell correctly because that's important. And sure. I think what we'll do is we'll just create a very simple project that can show and hide a button, or I should say add and remove a button. And then we'll verify that our memory allocations don't increase as we make it appear and disappear. Because again, that's the one thing that I'm worried about, is that static list holds on to it. But I'm also aware that this guy should be getting cleared. Because this does register a class level handler, which is fine. There should only ever be one of these. It's registered up on a static constructor, which means it won't be invoked multiple times. So all of this code looks correct to me. I don't see anything that's jumping out and saying memory leak. And so I'm suspecting that instance count that was seen is a little bit misleading, simply because, again, I'm okay with those allocations showing up and not going away until the button disappears. Because if you click on a button and it has to allocate a ripple and do a storyboard animation, that's expected. Because that storyboard animation, by default, it's going to play all the way through, and then WPF is going to keep that storyboard active to hold your control at the completed state of that storyboard. So it's going to stay there, and that instance is going to stay active. So it doesn't shock me that those ones are still alive. Again, if they're still around after we get rid of the button, however, that is definitely a problem. So let's go and grab, let's see, browse, material design. And let's grab this guy here, and let's grab, so dependency highest, let's grab pre-releases too. So I mentioned before, if people want to test the latest 2.6.0 code, all you have to do on your NuGet package manager, check this box for include pre-release. This will then update the versions available over here and let you pick. As you can see, there is a ton. You can always go back and pick the 2.5.1 release, or you can grab all of the 2.6.0 stuff that's in there. So we are going to grab the latest 2.6.0 pre-release because we want all the things. We're going to grab the highest dependency just to make sure I get my latest colors library that goes along with it, and install. And away we go. And just for fun, we're going to come over here, and I usually just steal this type of stuff right out of the demo app. And we should be able to grab this and this. That should be enough for us. And if it's not, that'll tell me there's something else that needs to be addressed before we release 2.6.0. So we are going to do so it is important to note that these lines are inside of the merge dictionary collection of the application resource dictionary. So by default, this is what your file looks like. To actually be able to access that merge dictionary collection, we need to actually declare a resource dictionary. So we'll declare the resource dictionary instance, and then we will grab its merge dictionary collection, and we're just going to add some items to it. So what we want is this, because that is, nope, I don't want the bundled one. I do want the bundled one. I don't want the custom theme. So this is the new way of doing colors and theming for those people who haven't seen it before. So all of those extra dictionaries. You still need to bring this dictionary in. It's what loads up the default WPF styles for all of your controls. But now you have a simple way of just coming in here and going, well, what do we want to use? And because these are just enums, you get a nice list in your IntelliSense. You can pick through the colors. The whole new theming API it's much simpler to work with. It's also extendable, so all of the MA app stuff that was kind of hard-coded in the library is now gone and moved up into the MA apps integration library, where it should be. So back to our window. So what are we going to do? We are going to start with a button, content, click me. Great. It's actually not going to work. So content control. We're going to do something a little fancier here because we want to be able to both have this control be added to the visual tree and removed from the visual tree. So that's more something like a conditional data template will work. So we will add a checkbox, content, show button, give it a name so we can reference it, show button checkbox. Great. And then this guy here, content control style, style, target type, let's see, content control, style, triggers, and a simple trigger on source name, show button checkbox, property is checked, value true. So when we check the box, this trigger will then fire. Let's see, so we are going to set property content template to be a setter. We want to set the value. This needs to be a data template, and he will itself contain a button with the content of click me. Boy, that's a lot of work. So vertical alignment center, horizontal alignment center, and normally I would go through and do grid rows and to make sure these things don't overlap, but we're just going quick and dirty right now. Horizontal alignment center, vertical alignment bottom, and just so he's off the bottom a little bit, give him a little bit of margin. Great. Okay, so compile this guy, and then let's go back over here. So is there a way to do a new session? Oh, it may have already kicked me out of the old one. So that may narrow down my choices right away. So memory, AA. That worries me. I don't quite know what I just pressed. Oh, source name cannot be set in a style trigger. Okay. Data trigger. Binding. Element name. Show button checkbox is checked. Pile. Okay, it runs, it works. There's our executable. Open. Okay, so we are going to run this guy and then verify first that our app actually works. Okay, show button, no show button. Show button, no show button. Show button. So the key thing here is just going to fire this guy off a bunch, and I would expect my total memory being shown here to largely stay constant, which, despite the fact that it goes up and then GC runs at some point and then it cleans back up, the fact that I can't get this to really jump and stay higher is a good sign already. Okay, so we're going to grab a snapshot, and then let's click this a bunch, uncheck, uncheck, uncheck. Good snapshot. And I would hope that this would be almost identical. If there's any new objects allocated, I'd kind of want to check what they are. So let's do this. Claims there's some amount of items. Let's see what we're working with. Okay, so almost nothing. We do have some animation clocks. Again, though, I'm not concerned with a single one being allocated. So let's go back here one more time, and let's do one more round of show, click, 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 hide, show, hide, show, hide, show, click, 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 show, hide, show, hide, show, click, 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 show, hide, show, hide, show, hide, show, hide, click, 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 show. I'm noticing it does seem like I've finally gotten it to crest 75 meg, which worries me a little bit. Let's grab another snapshot. And ideally, with a smaller app like this, it should be much easier to pick out. So let's compare 2 to 3 and see where we're at. So going from 2 to 3, it does still show something in here. It does bother me that it seems like because none of these are tied very tightly to anything in our library, which would mean we are misusing something. Again, the problem that I'm bothered by the most is that there's nothing in that code that seems to indicate a problem. Especially with a count this small of 3, this almost says to me like something's being held on to that may not matter that much. Let's look at the deltas here real quick. Instance value. Man, this really does look like something that's very tied into the Visual State Manager. Let's go back to this guy here. So that's not... That's been long since fixed. Yeah, using the CLR profiler, yeah. Yeah, I mean this is useful, but this is not enough to actually track down, um, especially when this is saying the delta is only. Oh, but we ended with it shown. Oh. Oh, that could be the problem. Okay, so do you want us to? How do I get back to my workspace? Is that where it is? This guy, open. So take me back. Let's do this one more time. So we are off. No memory there at all. So we're going to collect a clean snapshot here. And we are going to run through and see if we can get this memory leak to happen. So show, click, 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 click. Make the ripple animation occur. Hide, show, ripple, 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 hide, show, ripple, 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 hide. I think that is important that it there. Force a GC. And then let's grab another snapshot. And I'm very interested in comparing these two because I'm wondering that that last comparison showed a single ripple instance as being the delta. And if that is the case, so uncheck that one. So there. So that is very, very low. Again, we started from an empty state and we went to an empty state, which is what interests me the most. Object deltas. Basically nothing between them. Okay, so I'm going to think that the deltas we were looking at before was based upon the ending state of whether we had the button there or not. So if we stopped with the button visible, our base memory profile showed one. So I'm going to claim that I don't see a memory leak here. And I think for now, so I will go back through and add a comment on that issue with a little bit more data and information, possibly leaving this on there as well, just as a simple test. But I think that probably this is unlikely to be something that needs to be addressed. So, because especially with doing it with the demo app, there's a lot going on. It is a hard app to try to do, but if it is down to just this ripple and this reference count is what's happening, it would be very likely that this reference count is just because there were 10 buttons with ripples on the page that got allocated, which again is perfectly fine as long as the buttons are still there. Once the button goes away, if this ripple count doesn't go back down, then we have a problem. But in this case, it should be fine. So again, I'm going to come back and I will add more comments there. But let's see what else is on the chopping block. So unless people are interested in seeing, if anyone has any questions or thing you want to see, I will go through and do this. So this is just a wiki change. Let's take a look at this icon button. This looks like it's probably a little bit more fun. So Magnus put in this pull request. And he's done several improvements, just kind of bringing the components up to speed as far as the changes to material design. So PR adds 2 styles for icon buttons. They're a variation of our flat button. Great. They look pretty. So there is a hard-coded icon size we'll take a look at. The original implementation, while we're doing this pull request, let's just open this guy up real quick. So pull request 1247. So So we'll come down here, pull request 1247, double click. So for people who are unaware, I absolutely love GitKraken. I think it is well worth the money, the amount of time that it saves me on dealing with Git issues. There are a lot of really good Git clients out there, and I work with a lot of people who swear by the command line and love it. However, the one thing that always gets me is this visualization of the history tree. This is what I have trouble living without. Being able to visually identify where branches are in relations to other branches, where merges have gone, where things have moved back and forth is amazing. So this feature alone, there are other Git tools that also try to show history graphs. I have yet to find one that is GitKraken's equal when it comes to how easy to read and beautiful this looks. So that I will get off my soapbox. GitKraken is awesome. I recommend it. Okay, so back to where we were. We're going to leave that open. Let's jump into here real quick and reload. So we've got changes. Okay, so let's see. The original implementation leaves the circle background showing when the button has focus. So I omitted this from the style, which is fine. I'm not a huge fan. So this library gets a little weird because a lot of the material design stuff, the specification isn't designed for WPF desktop interaction where you might have somebody tabbing into a control, gaining focus, interacting with it, and moving out. That just doesn't really happen. And so there are some things like the visual state of a control are kind of gray areas where sort of up to us to figure out what we think is best. So this library tries to be as unopinionated as possible and then leave you in as much control as we reasonably can do so and still having this work. So let's see, to always show, this is why it is in the demo, show what it could look like. So I assume this guy here to show the background is what he's referencing there. I have named foreground button to match the naming style of tool button variants. Awesome. And usually Magnus's stuff is great. So first of all, we've got something in our buttons demo that brings this in. Great. And then we've got some changes in the button styles. Looks like some white space cleanup here. More white space clean. Okay, hang on. There's a fancy button, hide white space changes. Apply and reload. This way we don't actually have to review white space changes. Because for the most part, unless your white space is really ugly, I am in full support of cleaning up white space elsewhere. So width and height. So when he said his was hard-coded, this is probably the reference here. The pack icon width and height being set. Okay. Don't know if that's a big deal because this could be dealt with, and I'm not in any big rush to handle it. So foreground button. So I'm curious, the background, text field background, so he's actually setting the background on this last one, which is what's causing it. Okay, let's pull it up and take a look. For reference, these types of pull requests that come with nice examples already tied into the demo app make my life very, very easy. Especially, and Magnus does a great job with this, but going through and making sure, especially if you're going to add a new control style, showing it in the various states of disabled, enabled, active, and occasionally if there's configuration options for common things, showing off all of those. This is perfect. Makes my life very, very easy. And the easier it is for me to review, the faster it usually gets merged. Come on, little buddy. You can do it. You can do it. I know. Compiling's hard, especially while streaming. Packet exited with reference. Ah, dang it. So we are going to see if we can cheat. Typically, when you run into this bug, it is because you've changed branches, or maybe recently updated a branch. And so it'll bite you. I'm going to just close down my memory test just so I don't get confused with it. And what happens is your MS build process, when you compile an app, sticks around, which is really, really unfortunate. I don't see the MS build process. Let's just try a rebuild. And because the MS build process stays running, it'll hold on to any DLLs that it needs for doing the compile. So for example, packet, which is what we're using instead of NuGet, gets loaded up as part of an MS build task. It then goes through and MS build is holding a reference to that DLL. So if you switch to an older branch that maybe has a different version, it doesn't necessarily let go of the previous one. And so it can very easily get itself confused. The simplest solution is just close and relaunch Visual Studio. But I am doing my best to avoid having to do that because it always bothers me that it's a little slow. And a lot of the slowness does come from ReSharper being installed. But for the most part, I find that the benefits of ReSharper outweigh the cons. A lot of people disagree with me, but that's okay. Another question that has been popping up frequently is people asking when this library is going to support .NET Core 3, or as it's going to be known, .NET 5. And the answer is there is an outstanding issue, 1143, to go through and keep an eye on. Rebuild all successful. Yes. Full rebuild fixes it. So issue number 1143, it's currently assigned to James, the original owner of the library. He had said that he wanted to work on it and self-assigned it, which is great. So be aware that there is progress being made on that, and there will be .NET Core 3 support coming, hopefully soon. I'm not the one working on it, so I don't have a great estimate. If you've got questions, you can post them there. I know he's been quite busy, which is why I've been doing a lot of the maintenance on the library. But it will be coming, and I can assure you that I will make sure it gets done before the release of .NET Core 5 or .NET 5, because I'm going to want it at that point at a bare minimum. So I assume this was in our buttons and toggles page. And let's come down here. Where is it? Where are you? There they are. There they are. Way over on the right. So, material design icon button. I assume this is just disabled. It's enabled false. Great. And that guy's a little obnoxious, but dang it. This is part of why we redid this thing. So, foreground button, and then icon button. Okay, so that's fine. I think let's just take a quick gander at this guy real quick, because I am curious what it takes if hypothetically I decide I want to change that icon size. So let's just go and pick on the first one here. So grab that guy, and oop, not where we're going. Not where we're going. Paste, icon button. There he is. Okay, so first thing I want to play with is this size that was put in. So we know that this guy here was set to 48, so let's just double that. Somewhere around width 100 and height 100. So how does it play when I do that? So there's that. Okay, that could just be a live XAML issue why that thing went away. But I am curious if I can then do width 48, height 48. Because I think this is all, I think even though there's a hard-coded style, it's more of a default. Because if I can just override everything like this, it's not really hard-coded. So, and I think that might just be the live XAML failing, which is why we lost our pack icon. The live XAML update, because it tries to update on the fly, there's intermediate states, and not all of them are valid, and sometimes it just doesn't recover very well, which is always disappointing. Most of the time it does work well, but it doesn't always. Let's clear that out of my way. But it's not perfect. So, but I can't rag on the people who made it too much because it is still my favorite tool for editing the XAML. Okay, so back down here, buttons and toggles, and let's go through and make this guy a little bit bigger. So, yeah, that works like a charm. So 60, save, even bigger. Cool. I like it. I like it, Magnus. Okay, so we are not going to keep all my changes. That's just ugly. But what we are going to do is merge it and then check the result of it. Because I know that this page was redone, I want to make sure that the demo page still looks fine afterwards. So back to the pull request. Let's see, conversations. Oh, and it's add my review. Great, we can do that. So approve. That's great. We will do there and get this guy merged in. And again, I just want to make sure, because I know Git is saying it's perfectly happy to merge that, but because we've rearranged that buttons page, I do want to go and check it after this merge goes in. So for those paying close attention, that did do a squash merge. So what we need to do now is this guy, our master, is now behind by 1. So we're just going to pull our master to bring our local branch pointer even with the remote. And then we are going to switch to our local branch. Okay, and then we no longer need this, because this icon button was just the pull request branch that we checked out. So let's jump in, and probably, yeah, it's probably going to be confused again because we just changed the universe out from underneath it. Basically bouncing back and forth between when that pull request branch was created and when we are now. We're just going to check that buttons demo page to see where exactly those buttons ended up. Because I have a hunch in the back of my mind that they probably didn't end up in the right place. And in theory, it probably would have been better to take the pull request branch, rebase it onto the latest, fix it there, and then go. But some nights I'm lazy. Tonight is a lazy night. Actually, I do find that the best developers are usually the laziest ones because they always look for the easiest way to do things. often that means we end up spending 6 hours to save 1 hour of time. But we usually feel good about it when we're done. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay. Next round of caffeine. And for those people who are watching, I am sort of playing around with different stream times and different days. And once again, packet fails. So I am going to try just to recompile all to see if that dumps it and relaunches it. But I am playing around with different stream times and days. So just be aware. Keep an eye on the events list on Twitch, because when I know when I'm going to be streaming, I try to post an event ahead of time so that people get some amount of advance notice. Usually it's only about a week or so out, but just with my current situation, I don't always have a good set day or a set schedule that I can allocate time for doing this. Oh boy. No bueno. Okay, fine. Build, cancel. We'll just stop it and relaunch. So there will be somewhat varying times. I do have a couple other kind of stream topic ideas that I might play around with a little bit. One of them is just going through and doing an introduction to WPF with MVVM, so the model view model design pattern. You don't technically need to use MVVM when building a WPF app. However, with that said, in my opinion, it is by far the preferred approach. It's what you'll also find most examples are online, because WPF was really built around the binding engine and how that's expected to work. Again, you don't have to. You can build WPF apps very similar to how Windows Forms apps were built, with event handlers and a lot of stuff in your code behind, and that's fine, and you can get an app working. The big drawback to that is testability. MVVM kind of breaks that whole idea apart, so that you can actually start to test that interaction and see it actually flow through there. So I may end up starting to do a kind of a side series on that. So even though I will probably do those as live streams, they may just be ad hoc, a lot shorter than normal, largely just so that I can get the YouTube videos. And if people want to jump in and ask questions, that'd be great. I have no problem pausing and doing it. I've been pretty lazy because I know how much time it takes to actually edit the videos that I'm posting to YouTube. So right now I really haven't been editing them at all. They're really just archives of the live streams. At some point I have grand aspirations of being able to edit videos and post them like a lot of streamers do, but right now my schedule does not allow for me to allocate that many hours to it. So if anybody ever wants to help out and you're great at video editing, I would not mind having a chat about it. But at least right now it is basically me just hitting the export button and ship it over to YouTube. That way there's a kind of a place to archive it, because Twitch doesn't hold on to the videos forever. So for now, that's where it's going to go. Something like the MVVM tutorial videos, I might keep higher res copies downloaded and share those out somewhere. I haven't really decided. Part of it is going through and actually building out that build looks like it compiled. Part of it is going and building out kind of the outline of what I want to cover. I've taught various WPF training courses everywhere from like university levels all the way up to like enterprise training classes to get companies up to speed. And so trying to find a happy middle ground that makes sense to everybody. What is going on here? So text document. What's going on? Verify. Assembly references. Show me the XAML. This sounds like packet didn't get run. That's what this sounds like to me. So reference, show me the XAML, Avalon edit. Boy, that sure looks like it should be there. Verify that all assemblies have been built. So let's rebuild the project one more time because I'm guessing you got confused. So this is another one of those MS Build type problems. Because show me the XAML. What it does is it adds a MS Build task that literally just walks through all of your XAML files, treats them like XML, and just goes hunting for this XAML display control. And it builds up a list. So if you look in your OBJ directory, it's literally just outputting a dictionary that's keyed on I think it's the key or identifier property, I don't remember exactly which, on this control, so that when this control actually shows up in the XAML, all it does is go out to that dictionary. What is going on here? So also verify your project reference. Okay, I feel like that's lying to me. What is the actual error? Let's see. Warning, warning, warning. So let's see. Current version could not resolve this reference. Could not load. Shh. Check to make sure the assembly. Come on, what did we just do? There's no way those two changes did that. And we were working prior. So I'm very inclined to believe that this thing is just flat out lying to me. Yeah, because this guy is claiming that this whole namespace is missing. Okay. So clean the solution. We might just have to dump some of this stuff. So material design toolkit, demo. Because clean should be dumping most of the stuff, but when in doubt, dump everything. So we will just wipe those two. Okay. Rebuild. Let's go. So if people are actually interested in sort of a little bit more generic WPF type tutorials, definitely drop me a message on the Gitter chat. Let me know. Again, I'm sort of looking for feedback. I'm doing these live streams and videos largely for fun, but I've also noticed that several people are finding usefulness from them. So what is going on here? Okay, I have to believe there's a stray MS build process floating around trying to sabotage me. Like that one right there. And it died, which is good. Okay. Okay. Not seeing anything that screams Gary didn't die like you were supposed to. Because normally they would show up as orphan processes. But I do not see them. So, let's try rinse. Third time's the charm. This should not be taking this long to just verify a demo app. Because I would like to get back to trying to clear out this 2.6.0 release. Let's go back here to milestones and 2.6.0. Let's see here. So this one's going to go away. The other thing that's not on this list that really does need to be added is right now the demo app. There's the old color picker UI, and then there's the new color theming UI, and those really need to be merged. I want to, because I've obsoleted the methods being used by the old one, I would like to make sure that those are no longer shown as examples in the demo app because I'd prefer if people would stop using them, because they will be removed in a future version. So they'll keep working for now, but be aware, at least when we rev the major version and go to 3x at some later point in the future, those obsolete APIs are going to get stripped out. So yes, I understand, Visual Studio. You are unhappy with me. Okay, so I think you're resolving. Think about what you've done. Are you happier now? Because Solution Explorer seems to think you still seem like you're downloading something in the background. Or ReSharper is trying to grep the entire source code base to find all the things. Come on, though, buddy. You can do this. You can do this. Okay, so yeah, I understand. ReSharper caused a problem and it might be slowing us down. I get it. I get it. I get it. Okay, go ahead and run. And hopefully, because this Avalon edit package is basically the same show me the XAML, except for it pulls in the Avalon controls for doing fancy syntax highlighting and that kind of thing, which is how we're getting the, oh boy, what is going on? Okay, so let's back all the way out. This is now bothering me a lot. So packages, and I am getting quite annoyed with you. Could not resolve this reference. This is going to quickly turn into a stream on assembly reference bindings. Let's see. Build logging. So turn on build logging. And rebuild. So let's get some details on exactly what's going on and why. For anyone interested, the extension that I'm running to get this, highly recommend it. Let's find it here. Is it this? I think it's this project system tools. Installed all. I believe it's this guy here. Studio, quick launch, font stylers. I believe it's this project system tools for being able to go through and get at it. Let's go back. Build logging. So the library's built just fine. It's just the demo app that seems to be losing its mind. Markup compile pass, parameters. Let's see. Okay, let's application markup. It found all of the XAML. Great. For whatever reason, it is not picking up the Avalon edit, so it is not finding the reference. Okay. So then that begs the question, why resolve project references? Let's see. Let's see, this guy, I'm trying to remember which of these. Which of these is responsible for building up that references list? Task before resolve references. I thought it was going to be this resolve project references, but I am not seeing what I expected. Because that's resolve project references, not necessarily. Check for example, before clean, after clean. Okay, well let's start with this. So PowerShell cd c:\dev material toolkit. I believe it's .packet packet exe. I cannot remember the syntax for this. I think it's just straight up update. Let's see. Oh, install. Go gadget packet. Because I think update actually finds, updates dependencies to the latest version. Not quite what we want. We just want to pull down stuff and make sure everything is there. And I think Avalon edit lib net45. Well, look at that. The thing is empty. So that is assuredly the problem. Why do you think you are installed correctly when you clearly aren't? So let's try this one more time. Something has clearly dropped that reference. XAML Avalon edit lib net45. Hey, there's the DLL. I have no idea what happened there. No idea. So, sure, you've been modified. Let's just check and see. I understand it's been modified, but I don't think there should be any outstanding changes. When you run the packet install, I do believe that it goes through and modifies the CS proj because it rewrites the package references. So it doesn't surprise me that the CS proj shows an update. And we can go ahead and turn off the build logging. No longer necessary. No longer necessary. Now for what we started with in the first place. To check our demo app to make sure the button layout is correct. Which is what we were going for in the first place. So at least get one decent pull request merged in and one bug, I think, resolved. Because I suspect that memory leak, once we look a little closer at it, is not actually going to be an actual memory leak. Come on, there we go. There we go. Okay, let's see where, because again, this page is now just buttons, not buttons and toggles. So this guy was happy to merge it, and it merged it over here. So I don't think that's what we want. I think ideally, I'm trying to think. These are very similar to the flat buttons, so I'm inclined to put them right underneath the flat button styles, where I believe they should go. So let's just go and move those real quick. Because again, Git was perfectly happy to merge stuff for me. I just don't think it just doesn't know where to put things. Let's see. Grab that. Take me there. So here is all of these guys, which is great. Let's see. Some margin to put it off from the side. What container are you in? You're just in a stack panel. That's why it's still laying out correctly. Let's see. And here are the flat button ones. And I think what we do is we just do stack panel. We'll put it sideways. Let's see, horizontal, and put them in there. Spelling counts. Annotation. There we go. Save, and this brought that up. So this margin is a bit problematic now because we don't really want it there. There we go. I do think we probably want to take a note from the stack panel above and probably tack on a little top margin just so that there's some separation between these buttons and the other ones. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. We have that. Yeah, because I realize that brings them closer, but in these cases, these things are, because they don't show their background the whole time, it just makes for a lot of white space looking area, even though I realize some of it's occupied. So we'll just have that for now. I think that looks better. Okay, so now let's just get those changes up, and let's see. Updating button page, moved, new, let's just grab, we can just say icon buttons to be next to the flat buttons. Perfect. There goes that. Push. And with that, I think we are getting close to end of time on my stream. So I think we're probably going to wrap this up at least here tonight. I'm going to go through and get a comment written up on this issue and get it closed out, or at least moved out of this milestone, because I suspect there's going to be a little more discussion on it, which is great. I welcome all feedback from people, especially if people are more familiar with doing .peak. But at least from what I can tell, I don't think there's a legit leak here that we need to be addressing. So, but if somebody thinks otherwise, I would welcome that information as well. And then hopefully go through and get some of these other ones merged in. I'm going to try and snipe a couple of these off probably before next stream. Things like this where it really is just a wiki page update, because I have been trying to get the wiki updated, especially when I see people asking questions that I know have been answered in the past. I've been trying to start to consolidate those answers from the Gitter chat and bring them over here so that you can find them. So if people want to contribute to the wiki, please feel free to do so. The wiki is open for anyone to edit. I will be the first to admit that there are inconsistencies in the styling. So if you see something inconsistent and you want to fix it, please do so. The wiki itself is backed by a Git repo, so don't worry about breaking anything. In the event that there's a problem, I can always revert changes. So that's, again, not a big issue to me. I would rather people feel free to edit rather than worrying about making some mistake and not getting that in. So I think with that, we are going to wrap it up for tonight, unless anyone has a question. And then we will probably shoot for, I'm thinking this same time next week. Again, I'm going to be playing around with different times and days just to see what sticks and what works. So if people have feedback or you're enjoying this, again, I do appreciate seeing the comments and subscriptions. It helps me actually know that people are watching these and I'm not just wasting all my time. So with that, we will say goodnight. Happy coding. We'll do it again next week.